Good morning, Professor Liwanag. I'm going to present my project requirement for ITE 6200 Application Development and Emerging Technologies. For the discussion, I choose the list of topics, which is in group 1, the workflow, the structure, and the style. The first thing we're going to talk about is the workflow. A web application is application software that runs in a web server, unlike computer-based software programs that are run locally on the operating system of the device. Web applications are accessed by the user through a web browser with an active network connection. The common tools used for creating web application are text editor, version control system, and web browser. Text There are many text editors, including native apps such as Microsoft Notepad for Windows, TXT for Chrome OS, and TextEdit for Mac OS. There are also web-based and independent text editors, including Notepad++, Sublime Text, Atom Text Editor for users who are looking for more advanced code editing. Okay. Now we focus our discussion in using a graphical user interface editors or GUI text editor, which is known as the Sublime Text. Okay, this is how it looks like after you install. Just go to your browser and search for Sublime Text Editor, or just click the link. Write down the link https://www.sublimetext.com/download. Choose your preferred version, depends on what operating system you use. When you have installed the Sublime Text Editor, then this will look like this. Let's try creating a new file. Okay, I will show. Okay, new file. Here. Then click new file. Okay. Then the default title in creating new file in Sublime Text Editor is Untitled. You may change the title by saving it in HTML format. Be cautious in saving file name. Must avoid spaces or special characters, as this is highly recommended to some other programming language, since compilers and interpreters are not designed to handle this condition. Instead, you may use underscore and try not to use other special characters. Okay, move. Version control, are also known as source control, is the practice of tracking and managing changes to software code. Version control systems are software tools that help software teams manage changes to source code over time. A version control software saves all the changes in a repository. Hence, if the developers make a mistake, they can undo it. At the same time, they can compare the new code with the previous versions to resolve their grievance. This can reduce human errors and unintended consequences to a great extent. A great fit for any web development company around the globe. Examples for these version control systems are the GitHub, GitLab, Beanstalk, Perforce, Apache, Subversion, AWS Code Comet, Microsoft Team Foundation Server, and Mercurial, and many more. In this topic, we focus on GitHub. It helps software teams to collaborate and maintain the entire history of code changes. You can track changes in code, turn back the clock to undo errors and share your efforts with other team members. It is a repository to host Git projects. For those wondering what is Git, it is an open source version control system that features local branching, multiple workflows, and convenient staging areas. Git conversion control is an easy to learn option and offers faster operation speed. Okay, here's the link for the GitHub where you can download. After you click this link, then it looks like this, and then just click for this download for Windows if you are using Windows. After installing your GitHub, click Start menu and click for Git Bash. Look like this and look for here. You can click here and then you can open your Git Bash. Here it is. Okay, then to utilize the pw command, just type sign of dollar in space pwd. Then to utilize the command ls, use this. To create subdirectory, use mkdir. And to configure your GitHub, just type in this using your own name, and then for your email is your email address. To make subdirectory inside the project directory is encode this mkdir module 1. To initialize a Git repository is encode this pwd and get init. To check the files that Git has made in the directory, just type ls space dash a. To view the contents of the .git directory, and you'll notice the file system that gets ready for you is to type this ls.git. To determine the status of our repository is git status, and to commit the changes we made is the git add index.html. To utilize the get command alongside the -m flag and a significant message about what has been altered since the last commit is git commit space -m and the initial commit. Okay, to view the history of our repo is this. Okay, browser. A web browser is commonly referred to as a browser. It's application software for accessing the World Wide Web. When a user follows the URL of a web page from a particular website, a web browser retrieves the necessary content from the website's web server and then displays a page on the user device. On installing the Chrome on Windows is download the installation file, and then if prompted, click Run and Save. Then you choose Save, double click the download to start installing. Then start Chrome. Then Chrome window opens once everything is done. Then a welcome dialog appears. Then click Next to select your default browser. Then a Chrome window opens after everything is done. You can make Chrome your default browser. Okay, the next topic we're going to discuss is about the structure. What is HTML? The Hypertext Markup Language, or HTML, is the standard markup language for documents designed to be displayed in a web browser. It can be assisted by technologies such as cascading style sheets and scripting languages such as JavaScript. It is a code that is used to structure a web page and its content. For example, content could be structured within a set of paragraphs, a list of bulleted points, or using images and data tables. Tags versus content. Okay. There are two different types of HTML tags: paired HTML tags and the unpaired HTML tags. A paired HTML tags is an HTML tag is known as when the tag consists of an opening tag and a closing tag as its companion tag. An HTML paired tag starts with an opening tag, the tag name enclosed inside the angle brackets. For example, a paragraph opening tag is written as like this: open bracket, P, close bracket, and then there is a text here, and then close with this open bracket slash and P, close bracket. The content follows the opening tag with the ends to the tag name starting with a forward slash. For example, an editing paragraph. The first tag can be referred to as the opening tag, and the second tag refers to the closing tag. The other type of HTML tag is the unpaired tag. It is called an unpaired tag when your tag only has an opening tag and does not have a closing tag or a companion tag. The unpaired HTML tag does not require a closing tag. An opening tag is sufficient in this type. Unpaired tags are sometimes named as standalone tags or singular tags since they do not require a companion tag. For example, is this. This is the unpaired HTML tag. In here, the HR is the unpaired tag used to create a horizontal line. In older versions, you might see HR tag written as open bracket, HR, close bracket. These tags are also called empty tag. An HTML comment begins with open bracket followed by the colon and dash dash. And the comment closes with dash dash close bracket. HTML comments are visible to anyone that views the page source code, but are not rendered when the HTML document is rendered by a browser. The comment tag is used to insert comments in the source code. Comments are not displayed in the browsers. You can use comments to explain your code, which can help you when you edit the source code at a later date. This is especially useful if you have a lot of code. Just for example, see the example here. Okay, for the headings, anchors, and lists. HTML headings are titles or subtitles that you want to display on the web page. HTML headings are defined with the H1 to H6 tags. H1 defines the most important heading and the H6 defines the least important heading. Headings are important because search engines use the headings to index the structure and content of your web pages. Users often skim a page by its headings. It is important to use headings to show the document structure. H1 headings should be used for main headings, followed by H2 headings, then the less important H3, and so on. The anchors. The anchor tag in HTML is used to create a hyperlink on the web page. This hyperlink is used to link the web page to another web pages. It's either used to provide an absolute reference or a relative reference as its href value. For example, is here. When you click this, you will go to another web page. This href attribute tells us where to go when the anchor element is clicked. The anchor tag defines a hyperlink, which is used to link from one page to another. The most important attribute of the anchor element is the href attribute, which indicates the link's destination. By default, links will appear as follows in all browsers, and visited link is underlined in blue. Visited link is underlined in purple, and active link is underlined in red. Okay. To lists. Okay. The ALI tag defines a list item and is used inside ordered list. Use the OL element, or an ordered list use the UL element, and in the list menu. The UL or the list items are usually displayed with bullet points, and the OL element, the list items, will usually be displayed with numbers or bullets. See for these examples. The output for this will become number 1 blue morphine, number 2 salmon, and then number 3 is tuna. If you use this UL, this will become bulleted. The output for that is bulleted. Okay. The nav tag defines a set of navigation links. Notice that not all links of a document should be inside the nav element. The nav element is intended only for major block of navigation links. Browsers such as screen readers for disabled users can use this element to determine whether to omit the initial rendering of this content. See the example here. Therefore, all typical content text is wrapped by HTML tags. Okay. The document object model is a programming API or HTML and XML documents. It defines the logical structure of documents and the way a document is accessed and manipulated. In the DOM specification, The term document is used in the broad sense. Increasingly, XML is being used as a way of representing many different kinds of information that may be stored in diverse systems, and as much of these would traditionally be seen as data rather than as documents. Nevertheless, XML presents this data as documents, and the DOM may be used to manage this data. With a document model, object model, programmers can create and build documents, navigate their structure, and add, modify, or delete elements in content. Anything found in an HTML or XML document can be accessed, changed, deleted, or added using the document object model, with a few exceptions. In particular, the DOM interfaces for the internal subset and external subset have not yet been specified. As a W3C specification, one important objective for the document object model is to provide a standard programming interface that can be used in a wide variety of environments and applications. The document object model can be used with any programming language. Okay. An HTML document consists of nested elements, HTML elements. The document can be viewed as a tree of elements. Each element is a child of the element that immediately encloses it. Similarly, each element is ancestor of all the elements it encloses. For instance, consider the following example here. In this example, the div element is the parent. Okay, the div element is the parent of the two child nodes, the H1 and the UL elements. The UL element is a parent of three child nodes, the LI elements, here, point 1, point 2, and point 3. The div tag defines a division or a section in an HTML document. This is used as a container for HTML elements, which is then styled with CSS or manipulated with JavaScript. Using HTML validation to identify problems. W3C's markup validation service. It is important that HTML be clean and properly structured. The markup validator is a free service by W3C that helps check the validity of the web documents. Most web documents are written using markup languages such as HTML and XHTML. These languages are defined by technical specifications, which usually include a machine-readable formal grammar and vocabulary. Markup validation ensures that the HTML of web content is well-formed and used in a way that is compliant with the HTML specifications. Markup validation should be done as early as possible in the web accessibility auditing process. It can help rule out apparent barriers when testing content with assistive technologies, so it is helpful to validate the HTML before doing any screen reader testing. Structuring the main content. The main tag specifies the main content of a document. The content inside the main elements should be unique to the document. It should not contain any content that is repeated across documents such as sidebars, navigation links, copyright information, site logos, and search forms. There must not be more than one main element in a document. The main element must not be a descendant of an article, a side, footer, header, or nav element. Say, for example, here. Structuring the footer. The footer tag defines a footer for a document or section. A footer element typically contains the authorship information, copyright information, contact information, sitemap, backdrop links, and related documents. The last topic we're going to discuss is about the style. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It describes how HTML elements are to be displayed on screen, paper, or in other media. It is used to define styles for your web pages, including the design, layout, and variations in display for different devices and screen sizes. CSS saves a lot of work. It can control the layout of multiple web pages all at once. HTML is used along with CSS and JavaScript to design web pages. HTML is the basic building block of a website. It has different attributes and elements with different properties. Say, for example, here, we set the color for all the heading one will be set to color white, and the text alignment is in the center. Rule sets. A CSS rule set contains one or more selectors and one or more declarations. The selectors, which is in this example, each one points to an HTML element. The declarations, which is in the example, are the color blue, and text align, center style, element with a property, and value. Comments. Our cascading style sheet code can likewise incorporate comments. Like the comments in HTML, CSS comments are code explanations that are totally disregarded by the browser during execution. CSS comments are not displayed in the browser, but they can help document your source code. Comments are used to explain the code and may help you when you edit a source code and a later date. Comments are ignored by browsers. A CSS comment is placed inside the style element and starts with a slash, like this, for example, and ends with a asterisk and backslash. No, that slash. Okay. Padding, border, and the margin. CSS padding in CSS, the term box model is used when talking about design and layout. The CSS box model is essentially a box that wraps around every HTML. It consists of margins, borders, padding, and the actual content. CSS padding properties are used to generate space around an element's content inside of any defined borders. With CSS, you have full control over the padding. There are properties for setting the padding for each side of an element: top, right, bottom, and left. CSS has properties for specifying the padding for each side of an element. All the padding properties can have the following values. The length specifies a padding in px, pt, cm, etc. The percentage specifies a padding in percentage of the width of the containing element. Inherit specifies that the padding should be inherited from the parent element. Note, negative values are not allowed. See example here. CSS border style. The border style property specifies what kind of border to display. The following values are allowed. Dotted defines a dotted border, dash defines a dashed border, solid defines a solid border, double defines a double border, and the groove defines a 3D groove border. Ridge defines a 3D ridge border. Inset defines a 3D inset border. Offset defines a 3D offset border. None defines no border. And hidden defines a hidden border. See, for example, this code. This is the demonstration of different border styles. Okay. The CSS margin properties are used to create space around elements outside of any defined borders. With CSS, you have full control over the margins. There are properties for setting the margin for each side of an element: the top, the right, the bottom, and the left. All the margin properties can have the following values. O2, the browser calculates the margin. Length specifies the margin in pxpt, cm, and etc. Percentage specifies the margin in percentage of the width of the containing element. Inherit specifies the margin that the margin should be inherited from the parent element. See, for example, this code. Okay. A CSS selector selects the HTML elements you want to style. CSS selectors are used to find or select the HTML elements you want to style. We can divide CSS selectors into 5 categories. Simple selectors select elements based on name, ID, class. Combinator selectors select elements based on a specific relationship between them. Pseudo-class selectors select elements based on a certain state. Pseudo-element selectors select and style a part of an element. Attribute selectors select elements based on an attribute or attribute value. Here, all the P elements on the page will be center aligned and with the red text color. The class selector selects elements with a specific class attribute. To select elements with a specific class, write a period character followed by the name of the class. You can also specify that only specific HTML elements should be affected by the class. To do this, start with the element name, then write with the period character followed by name of the class. Here's the syntax. Dot class, example, CSS declarations. A pseudo classes is used to define a special state of an element. For example, it can be used to style an element when a user mouses over it, style visited and unvisited links differently, style an element when it gets focused. The syntax is selector colon pseudo dash class open bracket and then property and the value. Style sheets cascade at a very simple level This means that the order of CSS rules matter. When two rules apply that have equal, especially the one that comes last in a CSS is the one that will be used. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and that first word cascading is incredibly important to understand. The way that this cascade behaves is the key to understanding CSS. At some point, you will be working on a project, you will find that the CSS you thought should be applied to an element and not working. Usually the problem is that you have created two rules which could potentially apply to the same element. The cascade and the closely related concept of specificity are mechanisms that control which rule applies when there is such a conflict. Which rule is styling your element may not be the one you expect, so you need to understand how these mechanisms work. Inheritance. Inheritance also needs to be understood in this context. Some CSS property values set on parent elements are inherited by their child elements. Some aren't. For example, if you set a color and font family on an element, every element inside it will also be styled with that color and font, unless you apply different color and font values directly to them. Some properties do not inherit. For example, if you set a width of 50% on an element, all of its descendants do not get a width of 50% of their parents' width. If this was the case, this would be very frustrating to use. Layouts with floats. The CSS float property specifies how an element should float. The float property is used for positioning and formatting content. Example, let an image float left to the next in a container to the text. The float property can have one of the following values. Left, the element floats to the left of its container. Right, the element floats to the right of its container. None, the element doesn't float, will be displayed just where it occurs in the text. This is default. Inherit, the element inherits the float value of its parent. In its simplest use, the float property can be used to wrap text around images. Here's an example. When we use the float property, we want the next element below, not to the right or left. We will have to use the clear property. The clear property specifies what should happen with the element that is next to a floating element. The clear property can have one of the following values. None. The element is not pushed below left or right floated elements. This is default. Left, the element is pushed below the left floated elements. Right, the element is pushed below right floated elements. Both, the element is pushed below both left and right floated elements. Inherit, the element inherits in the clear value from its parent. When clearing floats, you should match the clear to the float. If an element is floated to the left, then you should clear to the left. Your floated element will continue to float, but the cleared element will appear below it on a web page. For the example, clears the float to the left. Here it means that the div2 element is pushed below the left floated div1 element. Choosing the right font for your website is important. Choosing the right font has a huge impact on how the readers experience a website. The right font can create a strong identity of your brand. Using a font that is easy to read is important. The font adds value to your text. It is also important to choose the correct color and text size for the font. In CSS, there are 5 generic font families. The serif fonts have a small stroke at the edge of each letter. They create a sense of formality and elegance. The sans serif fonts have clean lines, no smooth strokes attached. They create a modern and minimalistic look. Monospace fonts, all the letters have the same fixed width. They create a mechanical look. Cursive fonts imitate human handwriting. Fantasy fonts are decorative and playful fonts. All the different font names belong to one of the generic font families. In CSS, we use the font family property to specify the font of a text. The font family property should hold several font names as a fallback system. To ensure maximum compatibility between browsers or operating systems, start with a font you want and end with a generic family to let the browser pick a similar font in a generic family if no other fonts are available. The font names should be separated with comma. See for example here. For the paragraph 1, font family is the Times New Roman and then Times Serif. Then for the paragraph 2, the font family is Arial, Helvetica, Sans Serif. And then for the paragraph 3, the font family is Lucida Council or New Monospace. One of the challenges web designers face is to get various web browsers render their web pages in a consistent manner. The reason is every browser assigns slightly different default styles to certain page elements. As CSS Resets aims to remove all built-in browser styling, it says we don't need the browser's default styles at all. A CSS reset or reset CSS is a set of CSS rules that resets the styling of all HTML elements that come with the browser's user agent. In the CSS reset way, we define all HTML tags to have no padding, no margin, no border, and same font size and the same alignments. Say for example here. Using CSS length to identify potential problems. CSS length to identify potential problems. CSS length is a tool to help point out problems with your CSS code. It does basic syntax checking as well as applying a set of rules to the code that look for problematic patterns for signs of inefficiency. The rules are all pluggable, so you can easily write your own or omit ones you don't want. CSS length shows any parsing errors. Parsing errors usually mean to mistype a character and may cause a browser to drop your rule or a property. Parsing errors are presented as errors by CSS length. The most important issues to fix. Interacting and troubleshooting with Chrome Developer Tools. The Chrome Developer Tools are a set of debugging tools built right into Google's Chrome browser that show developers how the browser is interacting with your website or application. Anyone can use DevTools to see how a particular website is built, where its content is being saved from, how quickly the page is loading, and much more. These tools are extremely used for those assessing the performance of their website or troubleshooting certain aspects of the page load. The CSS multi-column layout allows easy definition of multiple columns of text, just like in newspapers. CSS multi-column properties. First, I'm following Here are the following multi-column properties. Column count property specifies the number of columns an element should be divided into. Column gap property specifies the gap between the columns. Column styles property specifies the style of the rule between columns. Column rule width property specifies the width of the rule between columns. The column rule color property specifies the colors of the rule between columns. Column rule property is a shorthand property for setting all the column rule properties above. Column span property specifies how many columns an element should span across. Column width property specifies a suggested optimal width for the elements. Adding and manipulating fonts. In CSS, we use font family property to specify the font of the text. The font family property should hold several font names as a fallback system. To ensure the maximum compatibility between browsers or operating systems, start with the font you want and end with the generic family to let the browser pick a similar font in a generic family if no other fonts are available. The font names should be separated with comma. To completely customize the look of your website, you can't forget about the typography. How you arrange the style text, depending on your design, business niche, and audience. You may want to change the typeface size or color of your font. For example, if you favor a dark gray over black is in your color scheme, then you'll want to change the default font color or of your text. If you're in media, then you may opt for a sans serif font, which is considered the easiest typography to read. This is the end of my discussion, and thank you.